Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another writing lesson with Mrs. Burke. Today, we're talking about planning and drafting, and we're going to discuss how we can use a mentor text to help us with some ideas for our writing. If you're ready, let's get started. So I love reading books so much. I think you've probably heard me say that before. And when I read books, I think about the connections that I can make to those books. I think about, how can I connect with this character? Are there similarities between me and the character? Is there a situation in the book, like a problem or something that's going on in the book that I can connect to because I've had a similar experience in my life? And when I can make connections to books, it makes me truly love the book. But also, when I make a connection to a book, it can help me develop as a writer. And we're going to talk about how those connections can help us develop as writers. So, recently in class, we read the book The Baby Sister. And this was a very sweet book. And I was able to connect to this book in different ways. And when you heard this book, we talked a little bit about whether or not you have a brother or sister and if you could make a connection to this book. And if you didn't read this book, that's okay. I'm going to go through and talk about what this book was about so you can kind of be caught up with us. In this book, The Baby Sister, we meet Tommy, and Tommy is telling us about a time in his life when he was waiting for his baby sister to be born. Now, the author is Tommy DiPaolo, and he's writing this book about his own life experience. So it was very special that he was writing about his own life. And in the book, he can't wait to get this little baby sister, and he talks about how he has a big family and how mom is going to have a baby, and they're working hard to get their house ready for the baby. And he's helping by drawing pictures because he's a really good artist. And he's praying for a little baby with a red ribbon in her hair. And he wants a baby sister. And he is listening to his mom's belly to see if he can hear little gurgling noises in her belly. And if he can feel the baby kick. He's touching her belly to feel the baby kick. And he's thinking about the day that the baby will come. Mom says that Aunt Nell is going to come, and he gets very excited because he loves Aunt Nell so much. Instead, Nana Fall River comes to visit, and while Nana Fall River is there, Mom goes to the hospital to have the baby. Dad comes home and says, "You have a new little baby, brother or sister," but he doesn't tell Tommy which it is. So Tommy's really, really excited. But Nana Fall River's there, and she has a lot of rules. And she's very strict, and Tommy doesn't like that. It looks like his brother Buddy doesn't mind. He likes the food that Nana Fall River makes, and he looks pretty happy. He can't go outside and play in the rain. The dog can't come in the house. He's just not having a good time. But then he sees his mom calling down to him from the hospital window, and she says, "Be good for Nana Fall River." And he says, "Okay, I will." And he goes home and says, "Nana Fall River, let's be friends. I love you, and let's get along." And he eats all the spaghetti that she makes, and he tries really hard to get along with her. Finally, this very special day has arrived, and all the family is there waiting for Tommy's mom to come home with the baby. He's hiding because he's being a little bit silly. And finally, Mom comes in with the baby, and Nana Fall River says, "Give me the baby." And she brings the baby over to Tommy and hands him the baby. And look at that. It is a baby sister with a red ribbon in her hair, and her name is Maureen. Oh, how wonderful. And Tommy is just, so happy. He's the luckiest boy in the world. Okay, so boys and girls, I just went through this book and I very, very quickly did a picture walk. I know this book really well. I've read this book many times. So I just kind of looked at the pictures and told you what this book was about. But when you are using a book to help generate ideas for your writing, you should really go back and reread, because good writers reread books for ideas. So when I reread this book, I think. how did I connect to this book? Well, I connected to this book because I remember many years ago when I had my little daughter, Katie Jane. My oldest kids, Julia and Joseph, were in first and second grade when I was pregnant with Katie Jane. And they were old enough to understand that a baby was coming, and they were old enough to give ideas for names and to help shop for stuff for the baby. And it was such a very exciting time in our house. And I was really able to connect with this book because I thought about how Tommy was helping his parents get the room ready, and he was so excited he couldn't wait for a baby sister to be born. And I remember Julia and Jojo both hoping for either a baby brother or baby sister. So that was a solid connection for me. And I think there's a pretty good story there. One thing that I couldn't connect with in this book too well was Tommy's relationship with his Nana. He didn't get along with his Nana too well. And in my family, I always got along with my grandma. I loved her very, very, very much. She's no longer alive, but she lived a very long life until she was 100. So I couldn't really connect with that relationship that Tommy had with his grandma, but that did lead me to think about my life. And although it wasn't really a connection to this book, I thought about my relationship with my grandmother, and that was a little bit different than Tommy's relationship. That might actually be a good idea for my writing. Maybe I could write about a special memory with my grandmother. Very interesting. So did you see what happened here, boys and girls? I made a really solid connection to this book right here with Tommy getting a new baby sister and my family getting a new baby. But then over here, I thought about how I really couldn't connect to Tommy's relationship with his Nana, but I remembered that I had a very good relationship with my grandmother, and maybe that could be a story. So I got 2 stories just from rereading this very awesome book. Do you think you guys can try this out and see if this works for you? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a book that you love, and you're going to reread it. It could be any book you want. And as you're rereading it, I want you to think. What can I connect to in this book? I want you to think. Is there something in this book that I know a lot about, that I have a lot of experience with? Think. Is there something that's going on in this book that I disagree with? Like maybe a character's having a problem and you disagree with the way they solve that problem? And I want you to think, what can I write about? Do I have a solid connection that I can write about? Is there something in this book that maybe I didn't connect to, but maybe it kind of brought my thoughts to another place and I came up with a good idea that way? After you reread your book, I want you to go ahead and make a list of ideas. It could be a very simple list with maybe 3 things on it, maybe 5 things. See if you could put a couple of things on your list that you can connect to based on your book. So for example, if I was making a list based on this book, I would say Tommy having a baby sister connected to a baby coming in my family. Then I might say, getting ready for the baby's arrival, because that was a pretty big thing. And then I might say, I didn't connect to Tommy's relationship with his Nana, but it made me think about my good relationship with my grandma, and that could be a story there. So I came up with 3 pretty good ideas just from this one book. Why don't you go ahead and try it and see if you can do that? Write your ideas in your journal, and then you can share your ideas on Seesaw. All right, boys and girls, do your best work, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.